All right, we're live. What's up, folks? Welcome back. Tuesday Night Live, 10 Horse Money YouTube channel. I'm tired of winter. But it does feel a little bit better. We've had like today I saw 55 degrees in the old mail truck.
Mm.
But there's still like this chill. Even though it's 55 degrees, I still got some chill going on. I
I
can't
tell you
quite
what, for me, it was this morning, or I say morning, it was all the way up until like 1 o'clock. Anything in the shade, there was enough of a breeze out there today. And it just felt cold down in your bones still.
Yeah.
And then I've had to pick up my son from basketball. I picked him up from basketball. And I got out and I was like, even though I was in the shade, I guess there was enough of that breeze that had warmed up the air. And like you said, that 55 felt great this afternoon on the way home. So
yeah, I think it's that permafrost like leaking up out of the ground that's just kind of keeping it cold. It's like this cold air just kind of coming up from the earth.
well, I had to move some stuff around last night. I had to get the tractor out. And I got the tractor out. Nothing, like, didn't break through anything. It's the whole ground still froze on my side yard. So
yeah, I know, it's crazy. I still see. We were driving over in Southern Illinois Sunday, and they're still like they got a lot more snow over there than we did.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still some of those places that have shade. There's still like an inch or two of snow, and around here it's melted. But over there, they must have got 3, 4, 5 inches more than what we did over here.
I talked to a guy this weekend, and he was up in Columbia, Missouri, and he said full snow on the ground still up that way. So, or not full, but lots of snow on the ground still up there. I still got some piles down like in the shade where they plowed some of the roads, and there was a pile sitting there, which I'm sure you've seen the piles laying around town. But it's this one's not that gray black matter that's in the corner of a parking lot that's just slowly withering away. This is like fresh white snow. Nothing's touched it. It's pretty, but it's at the end of the driveway. So
yeah. Well, we got Matt just showed up here in the queue, but before we bring him in, I just want to thank the sponsors that are supporting this channel. And once again, Bass Braid. It's an 8-strand premium braid. It's that time of year where we're redoing all of our tackle. I mean, everybody's taking their reels apart, cleaning them, getting them nice and ready for that spring weather. And line is something else that we typically, swap out this time of year. So go check out Bass Braid, snipingbraid.com, Bass Braid. It's a guy over in Southern Illinois. This is his company that he's got going, and it's pretty good stuff. Some pretty good stuff. So check it out. It's really good price point too. That's that braid can get expensive. This stuff's at a reasonable price point. And then also Baitworks. We will be doing a $25 Baitworks gift card giveaway sometime this evening. So you guys, we got a bunch of regulars in here. They know how that works. We will give that sucker away, and you can buy you some premium spring fishing gear. So we're going to bring Matt in right now. What's going on, brother?
What's up, guys? How are you?
I am doing good. We're just getting ready to get started here, and it's funny. I saw you on Bass Talk Live the other day with Panger, and I never realized you were from kind of our neck of the woods. I didn't realize you're like Southern Illinois roots and all that. So that was exciting to find somebody from sort of this area that's out there grinding and trying to get it done.
Oh yeah. Born and raised in Benton in Southern Illinois, and transplanted to Alabama in end of 2011.
I don't see why you'd want to leave Rend Lake, though. I mean,
why did you leave?
It's crazy.
It's Guntersville Junior. Why would you want to?
Yeah, minus the grass and the points and the bass and
yeah, exactly.
They got some good crappie there, though, right?
They do. I got it a bunch of crappie fished on the lake. There's a ton of fish in it.
Yeah, it's actually it's one of those lakes. It's a real cyclical lake. It seems like the last couple of years they've been catching some decent bags, but man, you can go there and just suck it up too. It's just one of those. It's kind of an inconsistent type of lake.
It was crazy. I saw some weights. I've still got some guys I talked to back, which what I'd consider home. And I saw a 26-pound bag weighed this year, and I thought that's got to be a 3-day event for Rend Lake. I called a couple guys I'm friends with, and I'm like, what in the world? They said the water was so low that it was basically like shooting fish in a barrel, literally. And so I've never seen weights like that. You know, back when I was fishing tournaments, so you had 14, 15, 16 pounds. You had a bag on that place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the problem is, especially like in the spring, if you ever get any kind of rain and the water level comes up, it's so flat, it just spreads out. And I had a buddy that won a tournament down there. It was a BFL, probably like, gosh, it was probably 7, 8 years ago. And they went all the way, they went like a half a mile through the woods to get to the bank. And that's where they were catching fish. If you didn't get to the bank, you weren't catching anything. But to get to the bank, it was pretty much 4-wheel drive to get back there. And it just spreads out so far.
I'll never forget the last ITT that I fished. We'd practiced all the day before and got off the water at dusky dark. Well, there was a bow fishing tournament that went out that night. And of course, these guys had mud motors and there was a couple airboats there. Well, we knew it was tough. Water was high. We got there early that morning. There's guys putting in as they're taking out the airboats and all this. And these guys are looking out there across the marina going, oh, crap. They were already beat before they put their boats in the water. They didn't have an idea that there was a bow fishing tournament the night before. They thought somebody had them a sack of them when they were taking the airboat.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, I mean, we've gotten beat over there a couple of times with guys with a 25 on a little 16-foot John boat that can just go wherever he wants to go. It may take him a little bit longer, but he's going to get there.
We've got a team here in Alabama on the Coosa River, especially like Neely Henry, that they've got a jet drive, and they can go up in a place we call Terrapin Creek up in the Dead River. And when they show up with that boat, that you better have a bag because they already know they're there at certain times of year. They're going to make the 45-minute run there, 45 run back, but they're going to have 20.
Right.
It's all spots most of the time. I mean, every once in a while they'll catch a big head up there, but most of the time it's spots. And same thing. They can get places glass boats can't.
And that's a 20 on that place is a bag, isn't it?
On Neely. Now, certain times of the year, I think it was 3 years ago during a shad spawn, I think my partner and I had 22 and got 4th. So, I mean, there are times where it will show out, but most of the time, if you hit 20, you're probably going to win.
I got you.
That's a fun lake. You said Neely Henry, right?
Yeah, I love Neely Henry. Grass, shallow, grindy. I think it's one of those things that I think growing up on Rend Lake, you're used to getting 5, 6, 7 bites in a day and keeping your nose down and just waiting on those bites is not a problem. Guys in Alabama are spoiled. You've got all these great lakes down here and you're catching 10 fish an hour and you're just weeding through them. Well, that's not the way I grew up. So you go to a river system like Neely and you've got to weed through, the hours of no bites and grind through. It's not really a problem. It's kind of the way we do things in Southern Illinois.
Yeah, you knew in Southern Illinois you can't miss a bite. You got 6 a day, 5 a day if you're lucky, and you miss one of those bites, and there goes the whole day.
Well, growing up, my dad, my grandfather got me started fishing on Rend, and I'd always say, I always wanted bass fish. Well, we're crappie fishing. That's what we're going to do, and I never understood why. And my grandfather looked at me and said, well, they call it one bite Rend for a reason. And there were years where I went back and looked at some tournament results. You're talking when it was really bad, 8, 9, 10 pounds winning events.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I didn't have to experience that. Back whenever I was, I think 2000, when I got out of playing minor league ball, 2005 or 6 through 2011. I mean, it was decent. It wasn't great. And I actually went back. We're going to an outdoor show in St. Louis. I went back and saw some things. This last year, it's amazing how much the lake has changed. Things have sunk. The big island up there sunk a lot. A lot of things that used to be there aren't there anymore. So I don't know about the fishing, though. I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I mean, it seems like any lake, well, I don't want to say any lake, but a lot of lakes, if you go a long time in between putting your boat in on them or just driving by them. So let's say like 10 years. I mean, a lake can change so much in 10 years. Even I'm just thinking like Cedar. There's a couple trees that used to be standing on Cedar that are gone now. And this just happened within the last 7, 8 years. And then like the one of the islands is, it's eroding. Like you can physically tell a difference. And we fish it a lot and we can tell a difference. So if you weren't on there for like 10 years, you'd show up and go like, wow, the island's like halfway gone. But there's lakes like that all over the place. If you fish it every day, you don't notice it as much. But if you haven't been on it in a long time, you're like, this looks like a totally different lake. Like, especially lakes with cypress trees. Like there's a little place called Duck Creek. It's about an hour from where we live at. It's just a flat, it's a rectangular lake. It's got a ton of grass. It's got cypress trees. But every year, the wind and the waves will knock, a tree or two over. So you can tell year after year after year. Like if you look at pictures from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it's like a forest out there. Now you go there and there's, about half the trees are gone. So it looks completely different.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Which sucks for your, if you're somebody that triangulates, which not as many people do that anymore, but that old white oak tree that was on the, on the bank over there by the red barn, that tree may or may not have fallen in the lake or gotten dragged off by a beaver or something.
It's amazing how much it's changed. I was thinking the other day we had a spot on Rend Lake and it's right off of, oh God, I can't think of the road. It's right there at Sailboat Harbor, runs between, it runs all the way into Cesar. It's the main road. It's the main way there. We used to call it like 7-pole hump or something. You get out in front of the pole and you'd idle out until your 2D showed you the brush pile. And, it's amazing how much stuff's changed now.
Yeah. So that's a good question. You've been fishing for a while. How have you been able to adapt like forward-facing sonar into your game? I know it's like a hot topic and it comes up all the time, but a lot of people don't talk about, they just talk about how they hate it or they like it, but how are you able to incorporate it into your game?
I'm gonna be pretty blunt about it. Like I don't really care one way or the other. I think guys make too many excuses. It's a tool in the game we have to play now. And would I rather not use it and be able to compete? Absolutely, because of the way I grew up. But I will say this, as far as everybody, liking it or not liking it, you've got one of two choices. Learn to use it, become proficient in it, or the game's going to pass you by. And you just can't compete. I watched a little bit of the live coverage from the last Open that I just got back from Clark's Hill. And Ronnie Moore on live made the comment he was surprised I wasn't throwing a crankbait. Because, everybody knows last year the 4 top 10s I had were in shallow grass. It was a power fishing deal. I also knew that this one here, I better be able to use my electronics or I've got no excuse and nobody to blame but myself.
Mm-hmm.
And every year the electronics get a little bit better. Your wiring harness get a little bit better. And it's amazing how far it's come, because I took a break. When I moved to Alabama, I actually sold my boat and got out of fishing from 2012 to about 2018.
Oh, really?
Yep. When I moved down here. And when I got back in it, seeing where things had changed, I thought I was in a different world. Stuff had advanced so far. But I wouldn't, as far as the forward-facing sonar, NPFL's done away with it. MLF's regulated in some capacities in different events. Bass hasn't, limited to 55 inches, which, what's that doing?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't change anything.
So you were like, right before you took that break, side scan was still kind of a hot thing, I
didn't know how to use side scan. I was on Rend Lake, man. You go pick the bushes that look good. Lake of Egypt, I went down there when it was cold, and every once in a while you go to Kincaid when an ITT was there, but you just knew which bushes held fish at Rend Lake, and you fished the same stuff over and over again. There wasn't no side scan to it.
Yeah.
I barely knew what 2D was.
So you think that that's probably, a lot of the veterans complain about it, but everybody has the technology. They have access to the latest and the greatest. Do you think there's a part of the veterans just not wanting to put in the time to learn it? Or why do you think you're seeing like the young, youth always overruns veterans at some point. But I mean, there's still a lot of very good veterans out there that haven't been able to make the adjustment the last couple of years. What's your shot? What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is probably a little bit controversial. I'll probably piss off a couple of my buddies on the Elite Series on this, but fact is they don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just point blank. They don't want to do it. I think that there was a certain way that things were done for so long. They competed and made a living doing it in a certain capacity. And I think what's happened now is, why do I have to do this? I've made a living doing it a certain way my whole career. And now this new technology and these younger guys have come in and they're taking over my sport. Well, they're in the wrong. No, not really. I mean, it's our job to keep up. And I'm 41. I had to put down the flipping stick. I had to put down the frog, and I had to take 2 rods with me, and I had to go figure out how to use the Garmin. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I knew it was either that or I was going to continue to donate. And I think a lot of guys are too stubborn and stuck in their ways of, I'm going to do it the way I've always done it. And, I listened to a podcast with Gerald Swindle this morning and talking about last year, he tried to go down the bank, throwing a buzzbait, doing this, doing that. And he said, most of our Elite Series tournaments are going to be one ping and a minnow, as they call it. You're going to go throw your Demiki, your rig, look at your graph. Well, if you know that, why are you fighting it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may not be quite as good as those guys, but the only way that you're going to catch up is to go out and do it. Leave everything else at home. Go do it. And if you're not going to, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Well, McClellan was telling us it's like there was a pretty strong rock crawler bite on Table Rock this year, and you could go down the bank and catch 15 to 17. I mean, maybe 18, but, pretty consistently like around that 15, 16, 17 pound bag. But you could turn around and throw out the other side of the boat and catch 20, 21, 22.
Yeah.
So that's what you had to do. And it's kind of like what you're saying is there's a certain caliber of fish that are accessible in shallow water. And then there's a different caliber of fish that are out behind you. And if you want to, you can be stubborn and fish the way you want to fish, the way most of us like to fish. But if you're fishing a tournament, it's completely different from just going out and fun fishing. If you're fishing for money and a career, you got to use the latest and greatest technology, and you got to target the best 5 fish that are available in that body of water.
Well, something a lot of people don't talk about too is a lot of your time of picking stuff apart. I mentioned the bush fishing or Rend Lake, but if you're fishing docks, that's a big thing. I mean, there's certain times a year where a dock bite, you can really get well in a hurry, but you can also waste a lot of time because there's a lot of dead docks. Well, I can put my trolling motor on 8 and go down through there and scan docks with my forward-facing sonar. I'm still power fishing. I'm still doing it the way I want to do it, but I'm using my forward to figure out, what fish is there, where is it set up, what size is it, and I'm still eliminating water whilst kind of implementing the whole live as well. And I think a lot of guys don't really do that. I think they think as far as, if you're getting a Garmin, I've got 1643. Well, that must mean that I'm out there throwing a minnow at a jerkbait at them. No, I use it a lot in shallow water. I catch a lot of bedded fish, not even in perspective mode. I catch a lot of bedded fish, just by dropping, the depth down, increasing the gain and throwing on bedded fish. I can see how they react to bait. So I think there's a lot of versatility in this that a lot of guys, they could power fish with that they don't take the time to learn how to actually use it. Talking about Mike throwing the rock crawler. You're throwing a trap at Guntersville, which is what I've got the rattle trap tournament this weekend. I'm going to use it on the grass. I'm going to be able to tell you, what clump of grass those fish are set up on. And so there's just a lot more uses for it. And I don't think people really consider that a lot of times. I think the whole thing is it's a deep bite and I'm throwing it the balloons in the middle of the water column. That's right. Not always the way it is. Yeah.
I had one of my funnest days I've had using forward-facing sonar was fishing with a jig. And I was just, I was kind of fishing somewhat like I normally would fish before forward-facing sonar, except I was able to see the targets, and I would, I'd flip my jig. I was still making, kind of 20-foot pitches for the most part, which is what I would normally do without it. But I was just kind of able to pinpoint my targets a little bit better. And I didn't see a lot of the fish that I caught. Sometimes I did, but most of the time I just saw what I was flipping my bait into and just fished it normally. I mean, a lot of times I'd flip it in there and I saw it go in, and then I just kind of didn't really pay much attention to the graph. I just kind of continued to fish normally, but I knew that I was in a high percentage area versus if you're just going down the bank and randomly casting, you don't quite know what you're throwing your bait towards. But like you said, you can integrate it. You can still fish, old school, but integrate it into those power fishing techniques, and why not?
Well, if I'm gonna throw my jig into a brush pile, or if I'm gonna throw my trap down the middle of a creek that's 4 foot of water, I want to see every stump, every lay down, everything that's out there, so I can hit them. Before it was you'd start at one end of that creek and you'd fan cast, and you get bit, and you may drop a waypoint, or you may line up on it and say, "Okay, I got bit right there. What's right there?" And you go down a little bit farther, and you get bit again. You get bit again.
Right.
Well, heck, now I go down there and I'm back and forth because that creek's ever changing, right? There's always crap blowing in, new logs. There's the new log. Throw that trap right down the side of it, or throw that square ball right down the side of it, and watch one come out and smoke it. And nobody else is out there. And even 5-6 years later, after all this, there's still not a lot of guys that are doing that, like you said, in that shallow water. And it is 100. You're not seeing you're not on Bull Shoals in 100 foot of water, and you're seeing your minnow fall down real slow and one coming up and eating it. No, it's quick. But
I think we're able to get so much information off of Ford too about how fish react to baits. Because I mean, before the Ford, you make a cast or two at a piece of structure, you move on. Well, I mean, now you make a cast and maybe a fish doesn't eat it, but it turns on it. Well, then you make another cast, and before you know it, you put the pieces together throughout the day that your retrieve's wrong. Maybe the weight needs to be heavier or lighter. It helps you kind of put pieces of the puzzle together. And I just think a lot of times, I think we make too big of a deal out of, okay, so I feel like where the problem is with Ford is the scheduling.
Yeah.
Your scheduling, you have to have guys that when they make a schedule are not guys that sit in an office. They're guys that actually understand the lakes, or they're not doing it for the business purpose of this was an easy check from the tourism bureau. This city really paid for us to come here. It has to be okay, well, this one's going to be a scope fest. Well, then this one over here needs to be a grinder in more shallow water. I feel like a part of the problem is, you're fishing 9 events, 7 of them have been won on Ford Fest. So people are getting sick of it. And I feel like if the scheduling was better and it was kind of a more balanced, you wouldn't hear as big of a deal. And that's, you look at Division 1 of the Opens this year. Clarksville, everybody knew it was going to be a scope fest. Next 2 aren't. The next 2, you're going to have to legitimately be able to grind and power fish. You have to go back to old school. Will it play a little bit? Yes, it's always going to play a little bit in every tournament. And then you'll have one at St. Lawrence. But it's balanced. You look at the Opens, you look at Division 2, it's scope fest. All 4 of them. Mm-hmm. All 4 of them are going to be scope. And it's amazing to see that how much the scope is actually taken over as much as people complain about it. Division 2 is completely full with the waiting list. Division 1 only has 150 anglers. So as much as people complain, it really is a lot more popular. And the ones that complain about it, it's because they don't know how to use it. Because the ability to power fish, I love it. I love to go back to my roots. I love to throw a frog, love to flip. But the ability to catch them on a scope and watch them come up and eat it, and it's a cat and mouse game of they're 40 foot down, you're trying to hit that fish dead in the head, figure out what it takes to make him eat. Dude, that's fun too.
Yeah, so the other day this is kind of like old habits are hard to break. The other day I was over in Egypt, and I was throwing a jerkbait a little bit, and I was trying not to look. I'm like, I'm gonna go down this little grass line, and I'm gonna stay like 30 feet off the bank, and I'm gonna cast up there on the grass line. I'm gonna pull it down, let it sit, and jerk it a little bit. And you do that for a while without getting any bites, and you're like, well, I'm gonna spin the head around and see if something's going on. And you see your jerkbait. Your jerkbait's just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. There ain't nothing within like 5 miles of the bait, and you're realizing I'm just fishing in a bathtub. Basically, it just made you feel like I don't know. It's hard. It's like once you experienced looking at things and kind of getting an idea of what's going on down there, it's hard to not use it because, like you said, it just you're much more efficient. You're collecting so much more data from the environment that it's hard to not. You just feel, you almost feel stupid just pulling your jerkbait out away from the grass. Basically, everything in between the grass and your boat, there ain't nothing around, and you're going to continue to spend 2 minutes working it back, thinking that a fish is going to come from somewhere that it's not, and getting it. So it's, I don't know, man. It's,
how many tournaments you guys fish that you're like, man, we're just not around them?
yeah, a lot.
I mean, a lot, right? I mean, I mean, it's a lonely place, especially in big events. You're just like, man, I'm just not around them. Well, you know now. There's no reason not to know. If you're not around them, they're going to tell you pretty quick on that graph. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of I did a little YouTube clip last year that I just told them I'm tired of hearing about it. Like, either do it and keep up or don't.
Yep.
You know, Bass asked us our opinion. I said, my opinion doesn't matter because I'm going to use it if you let me, and I'm not if you don't. Don't care.
So what do you think about the Opens made a couple rule changes. You know, one was the no information rule, which was kind of weird about how they decided to just all of a sudden, when you read this email, you know, we're cutting it off right here versus maybe saying, you know, 9 days from now, we're cutting it off, you know, given like a little window for people to kind of finish up what plans they had for the season. That, you know, they made that rule change in the Opens, and then also the no co-anglers. So those are two kind of major changes that have happened in 2025. What's your thoughts on both of those rule changes?
Well, let's back up to 24 real quick. So we get to the 8th event of the year, and we're in the second day of practice of a 5-day practice schedule, 4.5 before meeting. And we get an email that we can no longer discuss, if you're in contention for the Elite Series, you can no longer discuss any information on that on lacrosse, is where we're at, body of water. And so that really threw a major curveball for a lot of guys, because when you look at the guys that made it, and look, that was an incredible group that made it last year. Those guys they're good guys, they're great fishermen, but everybody had somebody they worked with. And I worked with Austin Cranford, and he was up in, I think, the top 12 or 13 at the time. I think I was like 10th or 11th. And so we had kind of shared information all year. Well, now we couldn't. So Bass, I think they're trying to find that happy medium of what they want to do, instead of just they need to take and they need to make everything uniform across the board. Opens, Elites, Nation, all of it. And if they want to be no information, make it no information. They want to have information, make it, but stay uniform, stay concrete across the board. And I feel like there's too many changes. Every year there's something different. And I don't know if that is the upper angler input. I don't know if that is some indecision amongst the people that make decisions, unlike myself. But I feel like the no information rule, people are going to break it. I mean, I'm just being honest. That people are going to find that there's very few guys that go through it that are actually 100% honest about it. You know, I try to do the best job I can. You know, I'll have guys come up to you. You guys want to give you information. Guys, I can't do that. I can't get information. So the information rule is something that is really, I think that it's really hard to police. I think it's really hard. I think the intentionality of it's what has to come into question. Do you intentionally seek that information, or does it kind of come to you?
Well, you know, there was something said on a podcast I was listening to the other day, and it may have been BTL. I don't remember which one it was, but, you know, it basically said that, you know, there's so many different dang rules, because there's always somebody looking for a way to push that envelope. I think it was Castledine on Duncan, I want to say, or Castledine on Panger's show, one of the two. But it was, hey, we can't get information. Okay, like the vast majority of go, well, okay, yeah, I can't get anything on that. So
yeah,
but I already had a trip scheduled with a buddy. No, you can't. Like,
do it now.
You keep going down the line of, can I do this? Can I do that? No, you just can't get information. Just let it go. Like
and they come out and say that you can go fishing with a buddy, but he can't give you information.
Yeah,
you can fish with a buddy, but he can't give you information. What are you doing?
Right.
I mean, come on, guys. I mean, and you're exactly right. There's so many different rules by so many different, you know, the three main, you know, organizations. We need to get on the same page.
Well, and they're all rules because somebody pushed the envelope, right?
Yep.
Whether it was
That's how all rules are. I mean,
or
and no matter what they do, people are going to continue to push the envelope. It's
Absolutely.
that is human nature. That is the nature of the beast with the competition we have, and they can set all the rules ever. All three of us could sit down and write every rule we could think of, and somebody will find something to either push those or find a loophole.
Well, somebody's going to read through every one of those rules and go, well, what if I did this? It wouldn't violate this one and this one. I just want to go fishing, guys. Like, I don't care.
Well, if you get in a boat with somebody, you can put duct tape. There's two anglers in a boat. You can put duct tape over both of their mouths, and you're going to gain a ton of information just by watching how each other's fishing.
Yeah.
Visual versus verbal, they're still the same communication. I mean, you can be in your boat, not even in the boat with another person, and watch, let's just say Todd Castledine's on Rayburn, and Matt's out there fishing on one side of the point watching Todd or whoever it is. You're gaining there's knowledge that's that's gained by doing that.
Yeah, we call those pirates.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, trust me, I live on the worst lake possible for that.
Yeah, you do.
Bent pole method. That pole's bent, buddy. You got company. It's awful in Guntersville.
And I left fishing Kentucky Lake in the I guess the height of, or the end of all of that with when I quit fishing the BFLs. But the pulling up on somebody and fishing rub rail to rub rail, like, I'm not that old, but man, I can't do that. Like,
I can't either.
I just want to be left alone.
I will run away from a crowd in a hurry. I can't do it. I don't like it.
I say all that to say, if I have a juice hole and you stop 200 yards short of it and you're fishing towards it, that's on you. Like small lakes, like what we fish around here. Mm-hmm. I've done that in the past. I'm not proud of myself for doing it, but you didn't stop on the juice hole. I'm not fishing to it. I'm going to fish it, and then I'm leaving. So
yeah, I don't deal well with that. I don't do that to other people, and I don't want people to do it to me. But I mean, everybody has a different view on that. I mean, I guess that's just kind of how you were raised and what you were taught and what you believe. But if somebody's on something, I'm probably not going to go anywhere near it. I mean, I'm just not going to.
Yeah. Yep. I know.
There's a winning bag in multiple areas in a lake in multiple depths. There's a winning bag shallow, there's a winning bag deep. It's your job to unlock the code. And if somebody's already figured out something else, move on.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, back to the rule changes a little bit. That what happened back in 2023, I guess, when there were anglers that knew that they were going to qualify.
Yep.
Right. So they spent time pre-fishing the lakes. They hadn't qualified officially. So there's that gray area, but a lot of them spent time going to all these lakes that were on the following year's schedule. And they had a lot of hours logged in where the official elite roster couldn't make that same trip, because it was off limits. So that's where a lot of this stuff that's going on right now started from. And it just kind of, they kept kind of slicing a little bit off the bread each time and kind of cutting it and fine tuning it. And, some of that's got to do with where we're at now on a lot of these rule changes.
I think so. But I mean, I hear a lot of people that were very against that rookie class. That was McKinney and JT and Milliken and Wesley Gore and those guys. Robert G. That was a really good group too. But I mean, look, they didn't do anything against rules.
Right.
At that point in time, the guys knew they're going to make it. They're still looking at it, and I kind of commend them for the fact they're looking forward, going, "Hey, I've got to make sure I'm ready to go when I get there. How can I get that advantage within the rules?" And so, there's two sides of that. Of where I would say, yeah, they didn't get a chance to, but they also don't have the experience that these Elite Series guys that have been there. They've already been there how many times?
Yeah.
So even though these guys are pre-fishing, and look, I'm different. I feel like spending extra time on water doing it yourself is a lot different than purchasing waypoints. I feel like there's kind of that line, that intentionality we talked about earlier. How intentional are you to push the rules? or are you trying to do it yourself? Are you really trying to make it? Are you really putting in time? Are you really grinding? And, if those guys were just spending time on the water and doing all that, it is what it is. But if they're buying waypoints, that's a whole nother. Even though what that wasn't against the rules, that's a little bit different.
Well, I would imagine some of that went on, right?
Rumor is, I don't know for sure. I don't know those guys personally.
But at the end of the day, like, yeah, you're going to those lakes. You're going to pre-fish. And like you said, those other guys that are been doing this for 20 years already been to every one of those bodies of water.
Times.
And let me be honest, like if I fish a lake today, it's not going to help me in 6 months. It's going to help me get around the lake. It may help me know where there's some brush piles at, but the fish are going to set up completely different.
Yep.
So
I'm 100% in agreement with you there. I think bass fishing's in a little bit of the same position baseball was when steroids come out. Everybody's looking to get an advantage. Everybody's looking to get ahead. And you're constantly changing rules and adapting rules to try to stay ahead of the angler. The angler's finding a loophole. It's constantly a cat and mouse game to where you can continue to play this game, or you can say, okay, you can get info. There is no off limits. Everybody has the same playing field. And be a little bit more strict with a smaller set of rules and just say, okay, you want to go? Go. You want to talk to people? Talk to people. But then everybody's in the same boat.
Right.
I don't really know the answer.
I think that's why you guys in the opens were so upset, because you got this set of rules, and then now you got this set of rules. And those of you that were proactive and possibly calling around and saying, hey, can I get some information here, and here, all within the rule set, right? Nothing said that you couldn't. And then all of a sudden, upon receipt of this email, you're no longer. Yeah. I think was it you and Matt talked about it? If it would have been at midnight at January X date, everybody would have been fine with that. That would have completely changed the dynamic of that email.
Not in the middle of practice.
Right.
In the middle of practice, you're changing. And look, I sound like I'm sitting here complaining about bass. I'm going to tell you right now, I fished a lot of tournaments, and none of them are perfect. But I do feel like the job and I can't speak for the Elite Series, I can't speak for a lot of others, but that Hank and his staff does with the Opens, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I really, and it's no surprise because Trip Weldon was phenomenal. Straight edge guy, straight by the book, did a great job. Hank is following his footsteps. So I don't have any complaints on that. We're just having a discussion here about it. But
right, exactly.
And, obviously he does not control what comes from the top either. But I feel like, like you said, if it wouldn't happen in the middle of practice, because look, I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said this out loud. I've talked to Panger about this. Austin Cranford and I ended up in a similar area, eyesight from each other, and I'm watching him, the water fell, and I'm watching him, he's still buried up in it when I figured out the fish moved out. I've got to watch him sit there and struggle. And if you look back at his results, all I would have had to done is what we've been able to do throughout the year in communication, working together, and he would have salvaged that tournament and still been in the running for the top 9. Instead, I couldn't say anything. And that put me in a position I didn't want to be in.
So you guys can't talk to competitors during the event?
We couldn't last year because the lacrosse event was on this year's Elite Series schedule. So if you made it, technically you got information about next year's event that you weren't supposed to get. And we got that even the second day of practice.
Huh. Yeah,
and
I missed that.
Constant changing, spur of the moment.
See, I was talking about the email that you got
this year. Yeah. This year you can, but you can only talk to guys that are in your in your division.
Okay.
And the next thing is you got to be careful because let's say I've got a buddy, which I don't have anybody to communicate with now. Because I don't trust very many guys. But let's say I talk to somebody about St. Lawrence, and he signed up to fish all 4. And on the third one, he decides, hey, you know what? I'm not competing very well. I'm not going to spend the money. If I've gotten information from him about St. Lawrence through that, and he is not on that roster for the 4th one, I just broke that information. He has got to be. I'm telling you guys, it is a very. I don't like the information end of things because it's so difficult, and that's
so
why
messy too, right? Like to go into that tournament knowing that you got something from a buddy who both of you signed up at the same time, but he decided to. Well, and rightfully so. If you're so far out of it, why go spend the money on it, right?
Absolutely.
That happens every single year in the Opens.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it was 9, you get, the first 4. If you bomb the first 4, why spend the money on the next 4, right?
Well, that happens in BFLs. I mean, the first couple tournaments, everybody shows up, and the last 2, if you're sucking and you don't think you got a chance to make the regionals, the numbers just fall off.
Field selfish. Yeah, and I mean, look, I told my daughter last year, I looked at the schedule, and I'm like, hey, look, if they don't go good, I'll probably finish the last term at Logan Martin, and I'm out. I think that's kind of everybody, it's self-preservation, especially financially. If it's not worth it. Right. And then before you know it, now you're in a rules violation, and it's just, there's a lot there. There's really a lot to unpackage, and I'm sitting here, I don't have the answer. I don't know.
Okay, here, let's move on to the co-angler deal, which I think, I fish as a co-angler in the BFLs and the Toyotas, and then I never fished an open. I was considering fishing the one on, I think there's one on Kentucky Lake, or if anytime they got one kind of close, I've always been considering jumping in it. But I think that was a great decision, because you got a group of anglers that are trying to reach the next level, and a co-angler is, let's just be honest, they're snatching up some fish behind their boater, especially in a multi-day event where they're trying to leave some fish for the following days, and they're trying to conserve. And I think that co-angler can play a big role in the outcome of a boater's finish in the Derby. So I think that was probably a good rule, in my opinion. What do you think about it, Matt?
I think your mindset's completely different with the co-angler than without.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've got friends that were co-anglers I've had in the boat. I've been very fortunate to have really good co-anglers. I can't complain about that. But I will say that when you have a co-angler, you think about your day 100% different. Especially if it is one of the grinders that you're power fishing, and you're like, you can't go down with one bait and then turn around and come back. You're sitting there going, I've got to pick up 3 baits because I can't take a chance on him catching one fish. Makes a difference. And that comes down now to the luck of the draw of who got drawn with 2 co-anglers that tournament as opposed to 1, or who didn't get any and got 1, and it kind of affects the season. So, I mean, no co-anglers, I'm kind of torn on it. I do think that Bass can use COVID all they want. It's BS. That's not COVID. It's Ford. It is the live. It is 100% about the live. And co-anglers, you start looking online, and I'm sure you guys have seen it. Co-anglers, I'll fish it if you'll pay for my tournament.
Right.
Because I'm just not going to waste the money, because if it's a scope fest, I'm not going to waste the money. And so I think it was a good decision on Bass's part. I do understand that everything's a business and everything's about money, whether we want to like that or not. It is what it is. And I would have been fine with them upping the price a little bit more if they needed to make up the difference, and leave it no co-anglers. I hate it for a lot of the guys I know they're co-anglers were planning on fishing a couple. But I think if your goal is to really put your best anglers in the Elite Series coming from the Opens, I feel like that this is what had to be done.
Could you go back to last season and see where a co-angler affected the outcome for you?
Me personally, yes. I won't call anybody out. I will tell you that there was a tournament that was a very late spawn bite, and I mentioned my co-angler. I said, look, and this is a lake I knew very well, and I said, look, there's going to be times where I'm going to catch the male first. I said, let me finish before, and I look up, and I'm weighing a fish and trying to cull, and I feel it over my shoulder, and there's a 3.5 pounder that comes out of the grass. Now, I probably didn't handle that the way I should have. But yes, there were a couple of times, and there was my worst encounter was not even in Bass. It was with Toyota Series. And there's just most of the time, like, guys, look, at most of the time, 99% of the time, it's great. Your co-anglers are awesome. They are very understanding of the fact that what they have on the line is not the same as what you have on the line in the front of the boat.
Right.
But then you will have that occasional situation where that gets lost in the competition a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, emotions are heightened. Look, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of emotional investment. There's a lot of time investment. You're taking time away from your families, from your job, and Panger and I've talked about just the grind that the 9 put on you is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that does wear on you. So little things of seeing what co-anglers do can affect your mood greatly and can really, by the end of the day, have you in a pretty sour mood.
Was there any rules for the co-anglers? I remember the old FLW tour. You had to have both feet on the front deck. The boater had to have both feet on the front deck before the co-angler could make a cast. Is that anything like that in the open?
If it's there, I don't know about it.
Okay.
That was never specifically mentioned. Not that I know of. I mean, there's kind of the unwritten rule. There's a line in the middle of the boat that I will tell you this, going back to lacrosse, I had a co-angler on day 1, and my whole goal was just to kind of get through being in contention, because on day 2, I had to go in a certain way and turn. And I knew when I went in, he was going to be able to turn and throw behind the boat. I couldn't do that. So I waited on day 2 to even go to this spot. So there's a lot of stuff that, kind of affected the way you kind of plan out your tournament, the way you do things, because the way the grass was set up, it was set up at an angle like this. He could throw behind. I couldn't go in this way because I'd be throwing over his line. So I waited on day 2 to go in there.
Did you know going into that tournament, day 1, day 2, which day you'd have a partner and which day you wouldn't, I'm assuming?
No, you can kind of look at it and see the numbers and kind of have an idea that I'm probably going to be half and half.
Okay.
And I will say this, Bass did a very good job of that.
You were able to forecast if you were going to had a pretty good guess if you were going to have a co-angler one day or not the next.
You had a pretty good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, you had a pretty good idea of whether you're going to have one both days or just one on, one off, which did allow you to game plan for that a little bit. So,
well, I guess it's better than boater on boater draw and something like that.
Oh, I couldn't do it.
Could you imagine that one?
I couldn't do it. No. Just go ahead and give me my money back. I'll go to the house.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do that either. Spend all that money.
When you got a co-angler that does what you're talking about with your late spawn tournament, you've got a lot of things in your head going on already.
Yeah.
That's just another thing that you're having to think about. And you're having to, there's bad chemistry in the boat at that time. You've talked to the guy. Hey, this is what's going on. I would appreciate if you give me my space. There's going to be a time where, you do have an opportunity to cast into a likely area that a fish is most likely going to be. But please don't, just out of respect for obvious reasons. And that person violates that respect. And then you got bad chemistry in the boat for the rest of the day. And then that's weird. And then you're also thinking about, okay, I got to defend these areas, so you got all the normal stuff that's going through your head, but you got these extra things that you're having to think about. And that's just not fun. No, fishing's supposed to be a little bit fun, but that just puts a damper on things.
And look, I can think back on the opposite. I can think back on, I had so much respect for my co-angler at Okeechobee. And I don't know if you guys seen that video. I had 25 pounds the first 30 minutes of that tournament. But I pulled my boat into an area and I told my co-angler, I said, look, if you'll bear with me for the first little bit, I will take you to a flat and you'll catch your 5 as well. I said, it's not going to be very fun for a little bit because there's 2 reed heads and I've stuck my boat in. And when I say reed heads, I'm not talking little, I'm talking big. He could throw dead out the back of the boat and that was it. And I was throwing in front and in just a little bit open area. And he sat there and biggest cheerleader. Hype man the whole way and was absolutely great about it. Took him to flat, let him get his fish, and everything worked out great. Yep. But for every story like that is like what you're talking about is it gets awkward when things don't go well. Because now you're mad. Now you're thinking, like you said, I have to slow down. I pick absolutely everything apart. You don't cover as much water. And if you get in a bad mindset, because, Gerald Swindle preaches the positive mindset. And he's right. And I'm not good at that. When things don't go good for me, I'm more of the let's just break it over the knee, throw it in the water, and move on.
Yeah. Well, tournament fishing is offense, not defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
To go back to a sports analogy, you shouldn't have to be playing defense while you're trying to play offense here at the same time. It doesn't work. So I get that 100% where you're trying to, hey, I'll help you, but you gotta understand the situation. But like you said, having that conversation early on in the day, like that makes a big difference. That takes the nerves down a little bit, and hopefully you have someone in the back of the boat that respects that.
I will say, on the positive side of the co-angler thing, I'm glad that I got to experience the co-anglers for as long as I did. I've got some really good friends that were co-anglers. I've got guys that come on guide trips. I've got guys I still talk to this day. I'll get text messages and phone calls from. I'm glad that it was there. Do I think it's the right move? Am I glad that I don't have to deal with it? From a competition standpoint, yes. From the social networking side, no.
Right. I can get that.
Yeah, and then there's like you said, the camaraderie thing is really cool. You got somebody to bounce ideals off of or talk to throughout the day. You got somebody that's, if something happens, if there's a mechanical issue or somebody falls out of the boat, it's always good to have two. You get a hook in your leg or whatever. It's good to have two people in there. And then there's the, it does create an element of honesty. If you got somebody else in the boat, if you've got a cheating mindset, you're not going to be able to pull that off as easy. You're going to have to really think about your shenanigans that you're trying to, get by somebody. So there's a lot of positive things about the co-angling, but like you said, I think for what the opens are and what the open anglers are trying to achieve, it does make sense to move those co-anglers out of the boat. Just makes sense.
Agreed. I mean, there's several times co-anglers caught a fish. I know I'm around him and I'm not getting bit, and he'll be throwing something off the wall I wouldn't thought about and get bit. Kind of unlocks it for me for the rest of the day. I mean,
that's a good and a bad thing though, too, right? Like somebody else figured it out in the back of your boat that he could have been with, Matt or somebody else in the same tournament you are, and he unlocked it for somebody else. So it does good things for certain people, but then it, that's the butterfly effect, if you will. It affects somebody else down the line. That because you got a great co-angler. Go back like Brian New, like one of the legendary co-anglers. You got somebody like that behind you that's cleaning up, but he's also
thrown him out of the boat. I couldn't have dealt with it. I couldn't have dealt with it. I don't want to get beat by my co-angler.
No, but he's going to unlock some stuff for you.
Oh, absolutely.
But then you get,
Nico
I got some motors that I wanted to throw out of the boat. I can promise you that.
Promise. I guarantee it.
But
Nico Romero, who won the co-angler side of things, absolute hammer. He won the co-angler side for the opens last year, kind of run away with it. He pre-fished with me some when we traveled, because he traveled Austin Cranford. And I'm telling you guys, I loved when he was in the boat with me, because practice, he was going to do some things different because our styles were different. And it was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to kind of see that.
Did you draw him in any tournaments?
I did not.
That was one thing that I enjoyed about the BFLs, was drawing somebody that you knew, a buddy.
Yeah.
That was always cool to be able to, you already have that relationship. You already know that it's going to be a great day. You've spent time with them before. So didn't happen often, but that was the fun part about drawing somebody.
I've never drawn somebody that I know or I'm friends with, or I don't think I've ever had that happen. I haven't. I can think of.
I know it doesn't happen often, but it was nice.
Mm-hmm. I bet it was.
Gabe, you drew the same guy like 2 or 3 tournaments in a row, didn't you?
Well, there was a little section where I think they had a computer glitch, because
it worked out really well for you.
Several people I know had the same draw 2 tournaments in a row. So I don't. And unfortunately, the guy that I drew back to back, he was okay to fish with, but I wish I would have drawn like a hammer or something two times in a row. This guy wasn't. He was okay. Everybody's different, but so that happened, and then there was another time where, let's see, I drew Roger Fitzpatrick at Lake of the Ozarks, and then I drew him the very next tournament. I think was on Truman. I drew him. If it wasn't the next one, it was the one after that. So within 2 to 3 tournaments, I had him twice, which was kind of cool. But I think that's the only time that I've ever drawn.
That's the one I was thinking of, because you got the Lake of the Ozarks hammer.
Yeah, that was a fun day. I learned a lot from him that time. Learned a lot of like just kind of little sneaky stuff. And we were talking, while we're talking about co-anglers doing crazy stuff and being, being out front with your expectations, or maybe not expectations, but just communicating better in the boat. When I fished with Roger, we're fishing docks. This was a March tournament, and he had a shallow little spinnerbait bite that was kind of sneaky that he was working on. It didn't turn out to work, but that's what we started out doing. And then the rest of the day, we were pitching and flipping, docks and brush piles around docks and stuff, just typical Lake of the Ozarks type stuff. But there was a point where he had a couple keepers in the live well, and I'd caught a few shorts. We were probably 3 hours into the morning, but you're kind of getting to that point where I need to get a fish in the boat, just so you can settle down. There's something about getting at least one in the boat that kind of calms you down, and then you can work on the next four, and then you calm down even more. But it's, as a co-angler, I mean, each fish is super important for points. So getting that first one is all you can focus on. But I was getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I've only had a couple bites, and you're seeing the guy in the front of the boat catching them a little bit better than you are. And we're going, we're going in docks, fishing down one side, and then coming out and fishing back out. And that's the process of fishing docks, the way we were fishing them. There were some of them located in the stall, some of them were on the walkways in the back, and then some were on the front corners and stuff. So you kind of got to fish it all. But I got to the point where I'm watching all this virgin water right there, because we're going in this way. As we're going in this way, we haven't fished over here yet. This is all virgin docks. Yep. And you just have to look at it. It's the right thing to do as a co-angler to not throw over there. But it's so hard to do. It's like putting a piece of cheese on a dog's nose and making them just sit there and not eat it. Yep. You're like sitting there looking at it, and you can smell it, and you can taste it. And it's like, I'm not going to do that. And I asked Roger finally, I'm like, I kind of already knew the answer, but I said, hey man, do you mind if I cast over there? And he goes, I can't tell you where to cast. But that's all he said. And with that response, I already knew what he was saying. He's like, I can't tell you to not cast over there, but I'd rather you not. And I knew that already, but I just had to ask, because you never know. Maybe he said, heck yeah, man, have at it. Go right in there, skip your jig up in there, catch them up. I mean, I knew that wasn't going to happen. That would have been like my dream answer, but that's not the way it went. But bottom line is,
at least you asked, though.
I did. Exactly. I asked. You're exactly right. I asked because I had a lot of respect for him, and I have a lot of respect for everybody that I fish with, because I don't want any bad juju in the boat. To me, that's just as important as catching fish. I want to go out and have a good experience. I want to build a friendship. I'm always filming. I'm capturing the day with video, so I'm getting some good content. And I want people to watch the video to have a decent idea of how I feel like you should approach a tournament out of the back of the boat, because whatever I'm capturing that day is going to transpire onto video onto my YouTube channel. But having that conversation with the boater is super key. And I feel like I did the right thing. He expressed what he thought in a roundabout way, and we had an excellent day. But if I would have started casting over there, it would have been totally different. It would have totally changed the day, and we wouldn't be friends to this day, I'm sure. So, let's see. Yeah, Stephanie was talking about, can you refuse the co-angler if you don't want one? And that's already been answered. No, you can't. You don't have an option.
Everybody would refuse the co-angler.
Exactly.
No. There'd be a bunch of them standing at the boat dock.
There'd be a bunch of them on a dock somewhere going, come on, guys. Come on.
Everybody standing there with their tackle bag and fishing poles.
That's right.
There'd be a bunch of guys with dollar bills hanging out going, come on.
Yeah.
No doubt. So
let's pivot over to Guntersville, man. First of all, congratulations on your ABT win down there just a few weeks ago. Those are a bunch of hammers in that circuit, man. So to win one of those is pretty impressive. That lake has just been on fire. What's what do you think's going on down there? I mean, what's happened over the last couple of years to get it to this point?
I think the population, as far as the diversity of the grass and how much grass is there. I mean, people complain about it if they live here because it's all over everything.
The eelgrass?
Yeah, and hydrilla. There's a bunch of hydrilla in deeper water too. You've got a good mix. It has not got as cold the last couple of years. I say that as we just come out of a real cold stretch here, but for long periods of time. So your shad population is a lot more dense than what it normally is. But somehow it continues to produce. And I mean, you're talking, there's been tournaments 35 to win. Like you're talking Florida and, Texas type stuff.
Yeah.
So the lakes, and really, I didn't think the 28 and change that we had, I didn't think it'd be enough. We thought it'd take 31, 32 at least.
I was talking to Mikey Balls just a couple nights ago. I got a new boat coming, and he just did a boat rebuild video, and he's working with precision sonar down there on Kentucky Lake. And I was just kind of looking at his setup, and I was trying to get my stuff set up like that. And he's down on Guntersville, and I was talking to him about, just all the big, nice 4 to 5 pound fish that are in that lake now. And he's like, yeah, you can go out most of the time. You can catch 20 to 21 pounds, Now to win, you're going to have a bag like what you guys had.
Yeah.
But basically what he was getting at is there's a lot of 4 and 5 pound fish swimming around in the system right now.
And so the first time I ever saw Guntersville, I was Southern Illinois Fish English Choice Classic. We come down in March, and people weighing in upper 9s and a lot of 8s, and you don't see those as much anymore. You don't see that 8, 9, 10 pound fish, but there is a ton of fish in that 4, 5, and 6 pound range, even up to 7 right now because of how thick they are this time of year. There's just an abundance of it. And during that tournament, we probably threw back. Our smallest fish was like 4 1/4. I can't tell you how many 3 3/4 to right at that 4 1/4 we threw back. Probably 15, 20.
Wow.
The lake is really, really, really healthy right now. And all populations. Your crappie populations is extremely high, and they're huge. The lake's in really good shape.
What did you say your big fish was down there for that tournament?
I think the big fish is 688. But we had 3 of them that were like that.
Okay.
We had 3 of those. We had a 4 3/4, almost 5 pounder, and then a 4 1/4.
So no, like absolute hammered giant. I mean, don't get me wrong. 3 almost 7 pounders are a pretty healthy day, but no like 8, 9, 10s that just push you over that next level.
I haven't seen that fish out of Guntersville. I haven't seen one. I've seen an 8. I haven't seen a 9 or a 10 since probably mid 2000s for me.
Which is good though, right? I mean, that's showing a good, healthy 4 or 5 year classes of fish that are all surviving, that are all healthy. And I'm like you. I remember looking at those results of those 8 ACs down there, and my goodness, everybody seemed like they had an 8, 9, or 10 pounder.
Yeah,
they were weighing in,
and that's kind of the evolution of the lake. It's changed a lot now. During that time, the eelgrass has taken over. You got a lot more eel, especially from that 4 or 5 foot of water and less, and then your hydrilla and deeper. And I think since the eelgrass has come in, for some reason, the size is going down a little bit, but the consistent quality is way up.
Are they still trying to get rid of the eelgrass down there?
Man, they try. they wasting money is what they're doing. They're wasting that money. We watch them out there. They're spraying every time you're out there. And then they got the big water tractors going, and it's kind of a running joke as a fisherman, because you're like, guys, you're spending a lot of money, and I know those guys are getting paid, buddy, just keep at it, keep getting that paycheck, but you are not getting anywhere.
Well, and I'm not a biologist, but doesn't that just create more spores in the water and just spread it out even more and plant more of it?
Yeah. So. It's there. I mean, that's the thing, and the only way that they're ever going to get rid of it is they basically have to drain it, spray it, and make sure it never got back in there. You're not going to kill it.
It's kind of like Asian carp, right? You gotta kill everything that's connected to the Mississippi River, and guess what? That's everything.
Are you seeing carp in there? You seen a lot of carp in Guntersville?
Yeah, we have a little bit of the Asians, but not as much. I kept waiting, because with the way they took over Kentucky Lake, I'm thinking it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few, but I also feel like the bass population, I could be wrong, that's just strictly an opinion my opinion, a quarter gets you a quarter. But I feel like, the smaller Asian carp, I think the bass eat them.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they're so predatory, especially in Guntersville. I mean, you can throw a 10-inch spoon, you can throw a 9-inch glide bait. They're going to eat it. And I think that's what I think I think they're going to wipe them out. I've seen a couple, but it's more upriver. You don't see a lot of them.
I agree,
Darius. Darius send some of that grass. Send some of that grass to Kentucky Lake, man. That's the only thing missing there.
I heard New Johnsonville and all that down there past Paris doesn't have grass anymore. I haven't been there in a long time, and there's
no grass.
There's
no grass. Yeah, but that's the missing ingredient. I mean, if there's some grass that would show up on Kentucky Lake, it would be absolutely bonkers.
That would be my favorite lake.
Well, you're catching some giant smallmouth down there right now.
Yeah, it's doing just fine, but it could be just a little better.
That's what's crazy about Guntersville. Nobody talks about Wheeler, which is attached to it. You gotta see the smallmouth that come out of that thing at times. Right there, attached to Guntersville down out of Wheeler.
Really?
Multiple 7s out of Wheeler.
Dang.
Wow.
It is, you got Guntersville, Dam, Wheeler. And you can be in the tail race at Wheeler and you can catch an 8 or 9 pound largemouth, and then you can turn around and catch, 6 or 7 pound smallmouth. Which
one's fishing better, Guntersville or Wheeler?
Guntersville overall. Wheeler, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see 28, 29, 30 this time of year off Wheeler either. But as far as consistency, you're going to see, because I think the other day it was a down tournament. We had 100 boats, and I think 18 of them had over 20 pounds, which is really down for Guntersville. Normally, you would expect in a 100 boat tournament, especially of that quality, you're going to say 30 is going to be over 20 pounds, 30% fill. And so Guntersville,
right? It was 18, but
yeah,
look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags that were just 20 pounds.
Yeah,
on that bottom of that.
It was tough. I'll tell you the way practice was. Jason Whitehead and I talked, and we kind of split. We fished a lot of the same stuff, found a lot of the same stuff. We both guide on Guntersville. We talked, and I really thought it was going to take 32 to win. Like, it was fishing that good. It was so dumb in practice. I did catch an 8 in practice, right at 8, and when it came up, there was 6 or 7 more with it that I'm not going to say were far off.
Wow.
But they all spread out. We had a cloud cover, no wind, and they kind of spread out.
Are you seeing fish? Are they spread out across the whole lake, or is it just you got to be in like certain areas to catch fish? I mean, is there enough to be, you can fish just about anywhere and you're going to be around?
Guntersville, the way I would describe it is it's 3 lakes in one. You got the south end of where it fishes like a lake. It's bigger, it's wider, it's spread out. The mid lake area is going to be kind of your ledge, getting into a little bit thicker grass, kind of that Seabold to Goose Pond area. And then from Goose Pond north is river. And it's, you can win it on any of, and in your better creeks that are notorious this time of year north, when you got mud in town and you've got, Crow and those creeks up that way. But I mean, really, man, it spreads out. It really does. I mean, you can win it on any of the 3 areas. Like, I normally prefer from Seabold north, but we caught them on the south end. The lake's just a little bit different this year. It's a lot.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear.
And I think, from what I understand, I haven't gone back to look at it and confirm it, but I think that through the top 10, I think several bags come from different areas of the lake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that's good because the fishery is healthy from point A to point B and everything in between, but it also will spread things out, so if you just got one section of the lake that's really good, that section is just going to get hammered and hammered and hammered. But if the whole lake is decent, it just spreads out a lot of the pressure, which is a good thing, I think.
Oh, without a doubt. We didn't have anybody we didn't have a boat around us. And that was surprising. I think we had one boat that we saw throughout the day a little bit, and that's it. And I was surprised because the school of fish we found, there was a bunch of them. I'm talking 40 or 50. And wow. And we were just sitting here thinking somebody else had to have found them. They didn't find them. So
that school had good quality fish. I mean, they were good fish. Or what's a typical mix of a school? Are you going to have some like 2 and 3 pounders mixed in with your 5s, or is it the kind of lake where they all kind of group up by size?
So that's where the lake fishes differently with that. So the way we caught them, we were deep with a big swim bait. Everybody assumed I was throwing a minnow. I wasn't. We caught one fish on a minnow that was roaming. Everything else was on a bigger swim bait, 5.5, 6-inch swim bait. So the fish that are deep, you're gonna weed through them. You're gonna catch one that's 3 pounds. You turn around and catch a 7. If you go to the grass, if you catch a couple of 2.5s in a row, you better go ahead and move on. And that's what's weird about the lake. The grass fish seem to group up by size. The deeper fish, you're gonna have to weed through them.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I say that. I mean, I haven't been to the grass in 2 years because it's been so good deep. I'll find out this weekend, rattle trap tournament on Guntersville. I'll find out a little bit more. It's going to be interesting.
Oh, that's strictly the rattle trap tournament?
It's strictly a trap, man. I mean, so I don't know. I'm going to try. I think I might take a 1 ounce and see if I can get the deep fish to bite, like this big swim bait.
So what do you have, like 5 rods with just different traps on there, liplesses? Is that how you do it?
Yeah. Is it all Bill Lewis rattle trap?
All Bill Lewis. They used to just strictly a Bill Lewis rattle trap tournament. Now, GSM bought them out, so it become Battle of the Brands. That kind of lost a lot of the luster while the boats went downhill. A good friend of mine, Mike Carter, who guides on Guntersville, he's helped me probably more than anybody. Around here, especially on Guntersville, and he's got it restarted, and it is strictly rattle trap. So
that's cool.
I don't know. We'll see.
That is cool because of the jerkbait. You have a jerkbait tournament. Or no, I know you have the Spro Frog tournament down there, don't you?
There's a Spro tournament. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I know they have jerkbait tournaments in some places.
Yeah, they've got. There's so many. There's a Baitworks event that has to be all Baitworks stuff. You got the Spro. You've got. I think there's one that's an Alabama rig tournament. It has to be just strictly one company's Alabama rig. Look, there's no shortage of tournaments on Guntersville, guys.
How many boats are going to be in that one this weekend? Do you know? I've heard rumor of several hundred, 250 to 300. Okay.
I don't know. That's what it used to be, and it's kind of dropped the last couple of years. I haven't fished the last couple of years.
You got good weather though, right? Is it supposed to stay like in the 50s and 60s?
It'll be nice this weekend.
Yeah.
I think even Monday here is supposed to be like 71 or something. Coming from 7.
Wow.
So.
Well, did you guys get hit with that? I know you guys got hit with the cold weather. Did you guys get hit with any snow that last go around in the south?
No, it went south. I got all that over at Clark's Hill.
It never goes south of Guntersville though, does it?
Not normally, and all of a sudden this year it does. I lived in Oxford for several years and never saw snow. Move up here and it goes south. So I guess.
Do you really want to see snow ever again?
No, my daughter's like, oh, I wish it would snow. And I'm like, no, I don't. No.
Yeah.
I don't the whole life. You can have it.
I work outside and I don't like, it's pretty, but I want it to be gone like the next day. I don't want to be, I'm a letter carrier. So I'm out walking around in it all the time. And I just don't, I don't know. I shouldn't be like that. It's kind of cool. I enjoy it. It kind of changes your mood. And it's kind of, I don't know. It just puts a different, it's got an atmosphere. I don't know. I'm trying to be too artsy fartsy, but it's cool to look at, but I want it to be over with. And
it's cool for the first day, and then it becomes pretty ugly. It gets muddy, melted, and
well, the difference, like here, our area, I can't even call us, I guess, the Midwest, but the Southern Midwest, I guess. We don't get snow and it's pretty. We get snow and then it starts to melt and then it freezes overnight and then it's slick everywhere. And they talk about people not being able to drive. Nobody can drive on ice. I don't care how good you are. No. You ain't driving on the crap. So, and Gabe, you're on the streets all day. I'm on the streets all day. I travel around. So it's a mess. When it does something like that, it's just makes everything miserable. So I'm ready for 70-degree weather.
Me and you both.
I can tell you we got what is it? Tomorrow it's supposed to be like almost 60 here. And then we get a little bit of rain on Thursday. And one of my son's coaches called and said, we're going outside on Friday. Let's go. So
that's right.
I know you do some stuff with baseball, don't you?
Yeah.
Travel baseball?
Yep. Travel softball and My best friend owns a training facility, which we got into. We got out of it in COVID because, I mean, you can't really bring kids indoors to train during COVID. So we shut it down. He reopened. I kind of moved on with some other things, and he's running it, but I still run a couple of travel softball events, and do some recruiting and all that. So yeah.
I got you. Yeah. Well, that's us. We're full blown travel ball. I coach travel ball, and
you don't want to have no money, do you? You fishing and travel ball, you want to be broke.
A bow hunt, a goose hunt.
Oh God. The only thing worse, if you're playing golf, you must be a millionaire.
Collegiate golfer.
Oh God almighty. Yeah. Yeah.
I will say the golf has taken a back seat. Like I don't hardly play anymore. I'm too broke down to play anymore. But yeah, the baseball. I never thought I'd be a coach. Like I remember his first year of Little League. I sat on the sidelines and I'm like,
that's right.
And I just watched so many
it's tough.
Just struggle, and it's like this stuff. I mean, it's not difficult. It's not coaching kids isn't difficult. You just got to understand how their brain works. And I'm fortunate that I'm married to a school teacher who understands how the mind of a child works. So she's taught me.
The hardest part about athletics today is managing expectations of parents.
Absolutely.
The kids aren't the problem. You hear all the time, oh, well, kids aren't the same. No, the kids don't come out of the womb any different than they did 40 or 50 years ago.
That's right.
They're the same when they come out. It's the way they're raised, the expectation within the house, and the voice that's in their head when they get in the car when they're done playing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So. And I struggle with that. I'm sure you have struggled with that as a parent. Like, it's tough. Like, I fight coaching on the way home. I'm his coach, but I fight coaching on the way home. Like, just let it go, bud.
I was my daughter's biggest critic in softball. That's how I got into the softball thing. And away from coaching baseball and football. I was her biggest critic, and the more that other people coached her, and I realized how far away from being what was best for that individual those people were, it was hard. It was really difficult because, I mean, they're still kids. You send them to college, they're still kids.
Yep.
I mean, I was a kid when I was 35. I'm just now graduating out of that stage a little bit, you know.
It's still fun, though, isn't it?
That's right. Stay young as long as you can.
I tell you, the best thing that I did for my son, and then we'll get back to fishing here, but the best thing I did for my son was find a 21-year-old kid that played college ball, got hurt, and all he wants to do is coach now. And I was like, you take him. Like, y'all are like best friends. My 10-year-old and this 21-year-old are best friends. Like, you go take him, you go coach him, you make him great. And then I'll just sit on the sidelines and say, good job. So I just learned not to coach him anymore. I put people in place to do that, and I'll coach the rest of the 10 kids.
Exactly.
So it makes our relationship better. Like, we went to the garage tonight before this, and we were just hitting. And little things that he knows that he needs to correct, but beyond that, we just hit.
There's so many lessons within that sport, baseball or softball, that people don't realize you apply with life.
Life, exactly.
They're missing a boat, man. The parents, everybody's kid is the next Mike Trout, or everybody's daughter is the next Jenny Finch. It's in the circle, and they're missing the boat on really what it's about. It's about when they're 25 or 30 years old, the traits and the responsibilities and everything that they take with them. I mean, I can tell you right now, without the game of baseball, I'm not sitting here right now. I don't know where the heck I'd be.
Well, we talked about it. I had my boss in town today for a meeting, and we talked about one of my peers. We had the big bosses come in a couple weeks ago. And when the big bosses come in, it's like, stop, drop, and roll, make sure everything's perfect, right? Without being told to do anything, one of them went out and gathered up all of our peers. We're going to go today and do this. We're going to go today and do this. And we're going to go today and do this. And I was like, he's a collegiate athlete, wasn't he? Yep. Because he cares more about you as the coach or manager than he does what he has to do. Yeah. Stop, drop, and roll, did everything inside there. And you can tell folks that were team sport athletes.
Yep.
In life, like you said, you're probably the 1%er, but there's not many like you in the sport of baseball, right? You made it there. Did you make it to the show or
Make it to the show?
Okay,
I didn't make it that far. I played Frontier League, which is basically equivalent to AA.
Yep, I got you. But yeah, like there's not many of you out there, but also you got to know that little Johnny and little Susie ain't going to do this for a living. Like, there's only a certain select few that get to do it.
There is, and I think that's what gets lost. And parents are ruining it. I know that's what everybody, oh well, that's the old adage, parents are ruining the game, but it's very true.
Yeah. What age is your daughter?
My daughter's 23 now. She played division softball, and she's a licensed real estate agent now, and now she's coaching and giving lessons and so
are you coaching at all anymore?
I am a little bit. I took a couple years after she got done playing. I was just kind of like, okay, I've had enough. And I've kind of ventured back into it. And that's where like the 4 tournaments for the Opens has kind of opened up and allowed me to do it again.
I got you.
Fishing 9, I couldn't have done it. But fishing 4, I can do that. My falls, hopefully, as long as things keep going the way they started, my fall will be a little busy, be hard to do it. But the summer, I won't have any problem because I think after April at Tom Bigby, I'm off until the end of July. So May and June and most of July, I'm fine.
Which that's May, June's the height of your ball season anyway. I know we're done in June, so
yeah, we'll start end of May. We'll play most of June and first couple of weeks of July. There may be a national event that
so you're coaching older kids, aren't you?
Yes.
16.
I've got the 18U. I help my daughter with the 16U. Her and a buddy of mine that played college football will coach the 16, and it's kind of a group effort. We have multiple 16U teams, an 18U, a 14, a 12. We have baseball teams. I've got teams in Kentucky.
I got you.
So,
but you're coaching softball.
I am now. Yeah, I got you. I coached baseball and football for a few years, and then because my daughter got into coaching softball. So
yeah, I got you. I was just the baseball when you mentioned 18U. We had the last 2 summers we had the Babe Ruth World Series in Cape Girardeau. So which was fun to see teams from all over the world come to little old Cape Girardeau and play baseball. So
yeah. No, my business partner runs the baseball in now.
Here's a question for you.
Is baseball any better than softball? Parents still crazy in both of them?
I think softball's probably a little worse.
Really?
Yeah. I think from the female end, when they get mobile, when they turn 16, keeping them invested into something they put so much time into is difficult.
I got you.
I mean, the female end of things, as a guy, dude, I just want to play. I want to fish. I want to play. Don't care what happens tomorrow. But those are the 2 things I'm going to do.
Right.
I'm going to play baseball and I'm going to fish.
Right.
With girls are very much, it's okay if I move on from softball because I'm going to go get my degree. Then I'm going to get married. Then I'm going to have kids. I mean, they have got it planned out. So if things become difficult, it's a little easier for them to walk away.
Yeah, because you said you're 41?
I am.
At 41, you probably still don't have it all together, and you don't have tomorrow planned out. I know I don't.
As soon as I do, you guys better check on me.
Exactly.
All right, Scott's got a question. Since you haven't fished Rend, or probably won't be fishing Rend, he says, Matt, any old tips on Rend?
I guess we're talking bass fishing here. The thing that I was able to figure out and was pretty successful with Angler's Choice and everything before the end, and I don't know what's still there, so I'm probably talking about things that don't exist anymore. But I did figure out the bushes that still held greenery. Most of them are dead buckbrush bushes, but if you find some that are still holding green, normally it's going to hold smaller bluegill, and you could kind of target those. Other than that, I mean, go throw a crankbait on the riprap. I don't really know. I mean, you'd be better off to talk to some of the guys back in Southern Illinois, the Miles boys, or somebody like that, because I don't know.
Yeah, that's.
You can definitely still catch them on a crankbait on riprap, though. I mean,
yeah, I figured that's probably not changed any.
No, Rex has got a question. He says, "I'm about to start fishing the BFLs as a co-angler. So, is there any difference between the Bass Opens and the BFLs as far as rules and practice?
So let's go with practice. You can practice with anybody. Same thing with the opens, but the opens only has 3 days. The BFLs, as far as I remember, there is no, you can practice every day up until the tournament.
Yep.
As far as number of fish, I think is BFL, is it 5 or is it 3? I know the opens is 5.
Yeah, it's 5 for the boater and 3 for the coder.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure.
They made that change this year in the BFLs. This is the first year they went to 3. And the Toyota series is 3. Oh, it might be 5 in the Toyota. I can't remember.
That's what JB is talking about. Everything's so different that but as far as the rules and the practice, rules are pretty simple. And I don't know that there's really anything written, just kind of use your best judgment and etiquette, communicate with your boater. If you have a boater that doesn't communicate very well, talk to him. Like, hey, what's your expectation for the day? Be leery of not bringing too many rods, too much tackle, that kind of stuff. I'm a former athlete. I'm not an athlete anymore. I stumble around the boat a lot. Don't put stuff in the middle of my floor for me. I might have the water.
Right.
As far as practice, I think everything's the same.
I think there's onus on both at that point too. Like, you got to ask the right questions to your boater. I don't need you to tell me the exact waypoint and coordinates that we're fishing, but at least give me so I can hone my tackle in. Mm-hmm. What is the plan for the day? Are we going to be fishing? Because I don't want to be going to Kentucky Lake in May and expect to flip bushes because the water's in the bushes. And then the guy's like, this is an example that happened to me. I'm drive down there. It's in the bushes. Like, I know what we're doing. This is before forward facing. And I get the phone call. It's like, you better be ready to fish 25 foot of water tomorrow. It's like, what? Okay. They redo everything. And I appreciated that. And then we went and flipped bushes all day. But it was a whole nother deal.
I bet you love that one.
Do what?
I bet you love that one. Because, gosh, when they're in the bushes at Kentucky, like, it's so good. And then he's going to be out there in the middle of the lake.
Yeah. Well, okay, so remember that we talked about those, like, 1% of boaters that aren't very good?
You got that one, huh?
We were dragging it. When he said 25 foot of water, we were setting in 25 foot of water. We were casting into 10.
Still.
And then when you looked up and down the lake that day, here, we'll get sidetracked, but we looked up and down the lake, and if you fish Kentucky Lake, you can see as far as you can point in that direction and as far as you can point in that direction. And there is not a soul on a bar as far as you can see. And he's like, man, they were out here 3 or 4 days ago, and my buddy gave me this waypoint from last year at this time. I'm like, oh, yeah, the lake's come up like 6 foot in 3 days, bud. Let's go over there.
Yeah. It's amazing official move too, by the way. It's so crazy. Like, even here right now, we got some rain coming in. If that rain comes in and the water comes up, those jokers fly to that shallow water.
Yep.
It's nuts.
Yeah, Rex, something I would recommend is you can contact the MLF home office and have them send you a rule book. They mail one of those out every year to everybody that's that's a member of MLF. So you'll get that rule book. But if you're new to it, you may not have got that. And it's got everything broken down. Read it front to back, just become familiarized with it. And then the night before the tournament, you'll have a pre-tournament meeting. It used to be in person, but now it's like a Zoom call. So get on there, and the tournament director he'll touch on the most important stuff. He'll go over the highlights and the things that are, that you're most likely going to have some questions about. And you can always call that tournament director. If you have any questions, if you're thinking about doing something and you're not quite sure, you don't know how many hooks you can have on an A rig, or can I use a double fluke rig? You've got certain questions. How close can I fish to a gas pump? There's little niche rules. If you've got any questions about that, most of the tournament directors are really cool guys. They love to talk fishing. They, call them up, do a little research. You can find their phone number. You can call them up and they'll tell you and answer any questions that you have. That's
just put that in the comments, Gabe, the MLF, BFL rules. So
yep, there you go. That's what I would do. And if something doesn't make sense to you in print, like I said, make that phone call to the tournament director, and he will definitely clarify things for you, because it's better to know than to be wondering. That way you can you don't have to live in the gray. It's black and white. And if there's something that you don't quite understand, it doesn't make sense to you, ask him. He'll let you know.
I would say a lot of times, kind of back to how we started some of this conversation off, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
If you don't feel right doing it, then you probably shouldn't do it. Which, as a co-angler, I mean, there's not a lot of rules. Let's be honest. Like, your boater's going to probably be the one that breaks a rule before you'll break a rule. We
talked about some of the etiquette stuff.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the unwritten rules, right? Like we talked about, don't throw over there on a bed fish. Don't, cast across the center line. But you get a good boater, and Stephanie said something about, good communication skills, making sure that you have that conversation prior to. So
little insider information there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I've won a lot of money on that bait,
Yeah.
That's my stage to go to if they ask me what I caught them on. Deep dive double wiggler.
I couldn't find that on Baitworks. Is that
that's a Guntersville special.
Okay.
That's only at GTO and Waterfront. I'm sure that's after ABT though.
And you got to ask the guy that's working there too. He'll go in the back and pull it out for you probably.
Oh no, yeah. Go in, he'd probably find it for me.
Yeah. Cool. A couple more things. I wanted to talk about the MMA fishing. So that's your guide. Is that your guide service?
Guide service and rod business.
Okay.
Yep.
How often are you guiding?
A couple days a week, which it'll start in February. I'll go a couple days a week. I don't do a lot in the winter. So I'll do 2 or 3 days a week. I don't try to do. There's some guys that are, a good buddy of mine, Jason Whitehead, I think he did 330 days this last year, something ridiculous. Jeez. Now, he's counting, if he does 2 trips in one day, he's counting as 2. Still, I'm like, I don't want to do all that. So 2 to 3 days. And I kind of try to be careful with who I guide. The whole expectation thing we talked about with sports is the same thing with your clients. I've got to protect a little bit of what I do on the tournament end, because I feel guilty if guys want a tourney prep, they've got to know right off the bat they're not getting juice. I'm not going to do it. I'm very upfront. I'm very honest about that. I will show you what to do, how to do it, but I'm not going to show you the key where.
Yeah. Well, that should be enough for them. If you're a decent fisherman, that should be enough to get you pointed in the right direction, I feel.
I'll give you the depth. I'll give you the bait. I'll give you a lot, but I'm not going to give you exact dots. And so, but I do 2 to 3 days.
Yeah. I imagine that's, especially coming into this time of the year, that's about all you can do, really. How you feeling about, you had a pretty solid finish at Clarks Hill, you finished like top 20, I believe, right?
18th or 19th.
Okay. So how you feeling about the rest of the season?
I got through the one that scared me.
Really? That's good.
I got through the one that scared me. Hank looked at me funny and said, that pretty good bag on day one, having 20 for somebody that didn't think practice went very good. And I caught 2. Very they're 2 roamers. And one was 5.5 and one was 4.5 on day one, which bumped me to 20.
Yeah.
I basically had the same bag both days. I had 2 spots on day 2 that one anchored by 5.5 and 4.5. So, I don't know if you guys watch the live, but I'm out there in 60 foot of water, scoping them 30, 40 foot down. I can do it. I'm not great at it, but the next 2, they're going to be grinders. And then St. Lawrence, I really look forward to St. Lawrence. So I really like the fall schedule, the 3 EQs, as long as I can get through those.
I saw a boy that finished second was throwing that rock crawler up shallow and snatched up a couple big ones there.
No, I'm not gonna lie.
You probably would have rather been doing that than doing.
Well, that's what, I listen to live. I'm gonna have to get on Ronnie Moore. He's throwing me under the bus on live. Like, I can't believe Matt's not throwing a crankbait. When we got done with ABT, I didn't get there until 1 a.m. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep in a couple hours in the morning. And I ended up not sleeping in, but I ended up switching tackle out, because to say that Clark's Hill is a little different bite than Guntersville is it's a little different.
Understatement.
Yeah. And I got out there and I've been there about an hour and a half. And when I tell you 6-footers were rolling through that place, we had, I think, gusts to like 35 that day.
Jeez.
And I'm like, and honestly, I'm just like, I'm not doing this today. I'm tired and just coming off ABT. So I ended up only having, and then the last day it snowed. We got 2 inches of snow and everything was froze. And so, and it's my first time on the lake. A lot of those guys have been there. So I kind of went into survival mode a little bit of let me catch enough to make sure that I don't bury myself, because I didn't do a good job of that last year. A couple times last year when I should have just said, hey, I'm not going to leave any open spot, meaning I'm going to have 5 every time. No, I'm going to swing for it like I normally do. And Leech Lake about killed me because I only had 2 on day 1. And so, learning a little bit from last year, and went out just to make sure I caught 5 solid fish and ended up having a real good day. Day 1. Day 2 wasn't bad. I mean, I had over 15, but just I had one really big fish get off at the end of the day that I'm sure it was a basket started to come up, but I mean, it's a good tournament.
Yeah, it was good. It was a
good lake, guys. That lake is so much better than I expected it to be. I
didn't realize that it had that size in it. I mean, there were a lot of super good quality fish, like that 6 pound range fish that were caught during that tournament.
I didn't realize it going in, because if you look, a lot of us fishermen, where's the first place you go for information? Because you can't talk to anybody. You go to YouTube. Yeah, you go to YouTube. Well, there's not much there. And if it is, you see somebody wandering around in the open, pitching a minnow out there, maybe throwing a jig in a brush pile. Doesn't really tell you a lot. So there wasn't a lot to go on. You could go on some results on BFLs and Toyotas and stuff. But I'll tell you this, that's a really, really good fishery. I caught 30 to 40 fish both days. Now the spots, there's a lot of big largemouth, but your spots there's way too many of those. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I really liked the fishery.
Now, were there a lot of, was it like Table Rock? Were you catching a lot of 2.5 pound, maybe 3 pound spots, or were they smaller ones? A lot of them.
The biggest spot I had was 2.5 pounds.
Okay.
And you're catching a lot in that 1.75 pound range. 1.75 pound. And I've heard there's some bigger ones. I saw some bigger ones weighed in. I didn't see them. All of my spots, I weighed in 2 the last day. One was like just under 2.5. The other was 2.5.
Yeah. So you're not winning on spots for sure.
Oh, no.
Okay.
You have to have largemouth. And, the guy that got second, I looked at my cameraman about 11 o'clock and I said, I really probably ought to start running the tops of these shoals and these points, because I'm sure they moved up. And so what you're talking about, my last stop, I stayed on the same shoal all day because I didn't have anything else. I had 2 spots. And then when I went to the last spot, they weren't out on the rocks. So I pulled up on top and there was a giant balloon in the middle of the bait ball and it come off on me and it was big. And then I caught another 3 pounder up on the top of the point. I looked at him and said, I screwed that up. I definitely should have been running shallow points with that, not much wind and that sun out. I should have been doing that. And I, didn't. So,
well, that was a timing thing for him. I was watching it live and he pulled up on that one point and caught that one big one. And then I think it was the next cast, or it was within a couple casts, he hooked up with another quality fish. And then he tried to run some more of that stuff and it didn't really pan out. So it was just kind of the right.
And I think a lot of that comes back to lake history too. I think a lot of those guys, especially those younger guys, they'd had a lot of college tournaments there.
Yeah.
And had some experience there. And that's huge. Like Tom Bigby, I have some experience there. A lot of other guys don't. I don't have a lot, but I've been there a couple of times. And even being on, like JB mentioned earlier, just knowing the body of water, maybe you don't get to go fish, but knowing what to expect of those fish are going to move. Yes. But just being familiar with your surroundings, like Clark's Hill was a lot like Smith Lake and Lanier and Hartwell. Everything looked the same. Everything looked the same. It was all, gravel or rock points, and you did have some shoals, and not all of them had fish. So these guys already kind of had an idea. I was out there blindfold on, going in circles.
Yeah. Well, like you said, if you run some of those lakes in the past, and that, Lake of the Ozarks is a pattern lake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that this, and this exists in this section of the lake, you can go run that
That's right.
Makes it so much easier. If you've been there for 3.5 days or 2 days, 3 days, whatever your practice period is, heck, you don't know what's going on. Like, you can't cover 50,000 acre lake in that amount of time.
No, and that's one of the changes that Opens made was now you go from 5 days to 3.
Right.
So if you don't maximize your practice time, and I did not do a good job of that, some of it my fault, some of it weather related. If you don't maximize your practice time, guys, I'll be honest. Like, if I don't catch those 2 roamers, I've got I have 16 one day, 15 the next, and I'm more in the middle of the pack instead of up there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, I mean, while it looked good, on paper, it wasn't as good as it looked.
Yeah.
Very, very, very blessed to get out of there.
So looking back, adjusting from last year to this year, you had 5 days of practice last year. Did you use one of those 5 days just to run around a lake that you'd never been to? Or did you have all that research, or did you go pre-practice?
Well, the good thing was, after we kind of get away from January, February, your days start getting longer. So, right. I mean, you start having, if you're there daylight to dark, you can split your lake up into 3 or 4 quadrants. And then your last half day, you're just kind of checking to make sure what you saw still exists. So I would kind of split it up and say, okay, today I'm going to focus on this end of the lake or this side of the lake, or maybe this main creek or whatever. And if it works out, then you just, hey, look, you put your eggs all in that basket. I never really ran around the lake, so to speak. But I did try to learn as much as I could about that part of the lake I was on that day.
You just took that part of the lake and made it its own lake. You're never going to – you're not going to exit this creek arm, and you're going to know everything about it for the next 5 days.
I'm a firm believer that there is a winning bag. If you take a lake and you break it up into quadrants, I'm a firm believer there is a winning bag or a competing bag in all 4 areas. You've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like its own lake, unlock it, figure out, whether it's to your strength or not, you've got to figure out what's going on, because different ends of the lake will fish differently. I mean, they will, but so you've got to kind of figure it out. And unfortunately, I was never able to unlock anything on day 1 to where I could really hone in on something. It always seemed to be day 3 or 4 before I figured it out. So, but 5 days was a lot. It was too much.
Well, you think about what you just said, though. If you unlock it on day 1, is it even going to be relevant 6 days later, 5 days later in the tournament?
That's a great question. I mean, that's a really good point.
It's just no different than fishing a Saturday to Saturday tournament. I went and pre-practiced on Sunday for a Saturday tournament next weekend because I worked 5 days.
Yeah.
Hell, everything I figured out on Sunday ain't going to play because the weather's changed 4 times, and we live in southeast Missouri.
Well, one thing that I learned about these Opens guys, number 1, especially your top guys, they're going to find everything. But number 2, they ain't a dang thing that bites they don't set on. I'm like, guys, my Lord. You can't sit on everything in practice like that. I found some bedded fish at Santee Cooper, and it was sneaky. And I'm like, I could go in there and I could drop a bag pretty quick. And I go by, it was the last full day of practice, and he has jumped, not really jumped, but went up and over the log like I did. You had to, you kind of like teeter-tottered on the log and had to use your trolling motor to pull your way in. He's in there, and he is power pulled down, and he is whacking on him. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's not going to work. So, I mean, there's not a fish that they're not going to set on.
You say that, but that's not just in the Opens. That's every Wednesday night jackpot. That's every Tuesday night jackpot. That's every Saturday derby, Sunday derby.
I think with the Opens, with what you're fishing for, why do you want to set on everything?
I know. You should know. They should know.
Because it's fun. It's still fun to set on one.
Hey, look, the 2 spots out of Clarksville, I caught 1 fish off both shoals.
Right.
I caught 1 fish and I left it. I didn't stay around or nothing. If that quality fish, I caught a 4-pounder off both of them, and I said, that's it.
Right.
That's the only 2 spots I had. And I'm telling you right now, I needed every largemouth bite I got. If I'd have set on 2 more,
right,
I'm probably 80th.
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, golly, the amount of guys that you see on even practicing Saturday for the Sunday derby, and they're doubled up on one in 2 foot of water. It's like, guys, what are you doing?
Well, they bit yesterday.
Yeah. How many times have you heard that? Man, I caught I won practice, man. I had 17 pounds in practice. Yeah, but you ain't got crap today.
Now, if you want to
a guy.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I cut you off, but before I forget this thought, we were talking about, have you ever drew the same guy twice in a BFL? And this just came back to me, that the guy that I said I drew back to back because there was a computer glitch. The first time I drew him, he came up to me in the parking lot. This is when we were like, the meetings were on site, and he came up after we got the text. He came up to me in the parking lot and he shows me on his phone all these fish pictures. He's like, dude, I'm freaking crushing them. This is from yesterday. This is from today. And they were like 4 and 5 pounders. And he had about 8 pictures. So, he probably caught 2 or 3 times that many. He just didn't take pictures. And I'm like, we ain't gonna catch a damn thing, and we didn't. It was a super, super tough day. So he won practice, but it didn't count in the tournament.
Well, there's a lot of those out there. And I remember, talk about, I think Rex had made a comment about he's going to go fish some of as a co-angler, some of these tournaments as co-angler. My biggest piece of advice, if they say that they're on them, they ain't. And if they say, we're just going to go fishing today and we'll figure it out as we go, that's going to be your best boater and you're going to have the best time.
I mean, my daughter will tell you, because she's kind of my counselor while I'm gone. My psychologist, my therapist, whatever you want to call it. It's bad. I mean, I'll be like, God, this like sucks. The whole adage, this like sucks t-shirt. This like sucks. I'm not going to catch them. And that's only when I do catch them. Like Clark's Hill, when I'm like, ooh, this one could be bad. But when I get bit a bunch in practice, and I don't set on a lot, but when I get bit a bunch, that's when I'm like, this one might not end up well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hear that. You hear that a lot.
I'm serious.
Well, it goes back to some of the, you hear this all the time in fishing, whether it's fishing or hunting or whatever, you got to go where they're going, not where they're at today. And if I caught them today, I'm already a day behind.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where they're going at that point. You got to figure out that next pattern. And sometimes when you're getting bit, you kind of get pigeonholed into that, ooh, I'm getting bit. I'm going to go get bit and see where I can get bit at.
That's what separates those guys, the top Elite Series guys, the top BPT guys. It's like, their ability to make decisions on the fly that day and leave what they found knowing where they're going or what change they need to make. They're pretty special at that.
I mean, heck, you talked about This Lake Sucks. That was Jordan Lee, right? That's his. He's him, Randy Howe classic. I mean, break down and make the best of it.
Yep.
Randy Howe in the classic. Do what?
I'm not that mentally strong.
Oh,
no.
Anyway.
No, I'm not the breakdown, and I'm not the be running down the lake and then all of a sudden be like, I'm gonna go over here to Browns Creek and catch them back there.
Make a U-turn.
Yeah, I ain't been there in 3 weeks, and all of a sudden you're just gonna go back there, and you had that thought in your head, and it smelled right that day, or it felt right that day. I can kind of
divine intervention, grab my wheel and go the other direction.
Yeah.
When it does, I'm gonna let it happen though.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna say, Jesus, take the wheel, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
Just don't hit the bridge or anything. Just,
right. Make sure you really take the wheel. Oh man.
Ron says it right there. The ability to fail quickly.
I've been a tournament won on that bridge since either. I don't think.
No.
I like that comment, Ron. The ability to fail quickly. And know that that's an unproductive area, or this is going to be a productive area. The more you do it, the better your decision making becomes. You spend 4, 5, 6, 7 days on a lake, you understand it a little bit more than spending a day or two a week on the lake. But that ability.
Here's another one of my favorite Uncle Ron quotes: "Is you didn't zero, you just didn't stay long enough." I like that because he's gave me some good advice driving home from a lake after I really stunk it up. Like
you learn so much more from failure than you do from success. Though.
Amen, brother. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of times, it's best thing you can do is when you're succeeding is to drop that and go try to find them doing something else. To reestablish. They're biting. That's a good time to experiment with a different bait selection, a different color. It's not when we have a tendency as fishermen, if they're not biting, we want to go through a bunch of different things. That's typically not the best time to do all that experimenting. It's when they're biting really good. That's when when you can try those different baits and get some confidence in something besides what you're throwing. It's hard to do though, because you want to just keep smashing them. A couple more things here and we'll wrap this sucker up. If you had 2 hours and you could fish one bait and the fish were going to crush it, doesn't matter what lake, doesn't matter the time of the year, you tie that sucker on, 2 hours, you're going to just kill them. What's that bait going to be?
Frog.
A frog? Hell yeah.
The second would be a swim jig, but frog. Yep.
You fish nearly a lot. That swim jig bite is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It plays a lot of places that people don't think about. It's a lot more versatile bait. It's a lot more subtle than a chatterbait. And I'm definitely a big frog and swim jig guy.
You got a favorite frog?
I really like the Hush Frog by 6 Cents. It's a lot smaller. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet.
I haven't.
It's real soft. It's got good hooks. I normally put some rattles in it. So
okay.
A little trick too. He's asking what frog would it be. If you start getting heavier mats like you do at Guntersville, put some split shots in there to weigh it down to where it's pushing the mat down. It makes it easier for him to find it and eat it.
I was just going to ask how heavy is that frog. If it's a smaller profile, I was going to ask how heavy it is.
Split shots in it. It adds to the rattle and it kind of helps part that grass a little bit, or that stuff a little bit more. Spoon. Hey, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, Guntersville's a good one with a spoon.
Ron's a spoon freak.
It's he'd love Guntersville.
He's born with a white spoon in his mouth. What about swim jig? Are you a fluorocarbon or a braid guy on your swim jig?
And if I'm throwing it up in the water column, I'm throwing braid. Okay. So I throw a Davis Bait Company. William Davis Sr. His son Will fishes Elite Series.
Yeah, right.
Williams, but he's got an incredible swim jig. I throw it on braid. I will throw it down some, especially when it's a little bit colder. Some of these when these fish start moving shallow on Guntersville, everybody throws a trap and a chatterbait. I'll actually throw a swim jig. It's a little more subtle. Then I'll throw it on fluoro, but that's about the only time.
And there ain't nothing better than that braid swim jig bite either.
Oh my gosh!
When it goes slack and you crack them.
Shad spawn with that white swim jig, buddy. About
you gotta stop. Like my lake is still frozen down the hill here.
You can go throw that swim jig if you want to. There might not be no snapping and cracking unless it's the ice.
You can skip it real good right now.
You can skip right there. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Are you throw 50-pound braid?
I'm 50. I'm a 50 guy.
Okay. Yeah. I need to do that more. I throw like 15 to 17-pound fluorocarbon. That's just what I know. JB's a braid guy. I used to throw it on braid and I got away from it. And I don't really know why. I think it was a mental thing because braid is more visible, but you're throwing it in grass. It kind of blends in anyway. And I mean, I punch with braid too, but I don't know. I got away from it for some reason. I don't exactly remember why.
Will you throw a trap on braid?
I will not throw a trap on braid.
Just 20, 25, I guess.
15.
Really? 15. Are you even snapping that out of the grass?
Yeah.
What about chatterbait?
I don't throw it on fluoro though. I'm gonna throw mine on mono.
Really?
Because I don't want to sink as much.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm cheap. I mean, on that one, I'll use Tatsu on most everything, but on a trap, I'm gonna throw 15-pound Berkeley big game.
You mean that right there?
Yep.
That's pretty good line.
15-pound Berkeley big game.
Exactly what that is.
I've been Carolina rigging with that stuff the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
It's still got a place. What about chatterbait? Fluorocarbon or braid? Fluoro, yeah.
Yeah.
Heavy? 15, 20?
15 or 17. Depends. If I'm throwing half, I want to get it down, I'll throw 15. If it's, a little bit less, I'll throw 17. Now, I will tell you at Okeechobee, I was burning a half-ounce chatterbait there in Harris Chain. I was throwing about 3 foot of water, throwing a half ounce, just burning it. I threw 22-pound Tatsu then.
Dang. Okay.
I throw mine on straight 20, but.
What's your thoughts on Sasquatch? You on the fence about it? Do you have any sightings? You know anybody that's had any sightings? I know this is kind of way out of nowhere, but it's
when I was younger, there were nights where I saw Sasquatch, but
I think we've all had these sightings.
And I mean, look, man, there's so many things that we don't know is out there. So many things. So I I don't know whether I believe in it or not, but would it surprise me? No, not at all.
You can't write it off.
No, I'd absolutely not write it off.
I'm with you on that.
There might be some walking the streets of Guntersville tonight.
Could be.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a big world, and
It's a big world.
The more we investigate certain things, the more we find out that there's a lot going on that we just overlook
or get kept hidden from us.
Yeah.
Don't start the conspiracy theory.
I'm just being honest. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. I'm just realistic.
It ain't a conspiracy if it's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, look, if I go out to Guntersville this weekend, Sasquatch standing on a hill, there's going to be a problem. I'm gonna know you guys sent him.
You'll know who to blame it on. You'll shoot me a text and say, "Hey, buddy."
Man, you fish cedar. You're from Southern Illinois, I'm sure, right?
Yep.
I swear, I know there's too many rednecks that fish those Wednesday night jackpots, but I want to put a silhouette of a Sasquatch with two glowing eyes on Pomona Point, put it out there right at dark. You know, everybody's coming in.
That joker would have bullet holes in it in Southern Illinois. It would be full of bullet holes.
It would. You're exactly right.
Some poor guy on the back side of it would be shot up too.
No doubt.
Yeah. But could you imagine the stories? I mean, because there's only a little bit of alcohol consumed in those Wednesday nights.
Well, it's usually in the parking lot after the tournament too.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah, well, that's how we do our giveaway, Matt. Is we make a reference to Sasquatch, so everybody's guessing numbers. We got a number written down from 1 to 200, and whoever guesses that number wins the $25 Baitworks gift card. But yeah, we haven't had a good Sasquatch story. We have had a few on here over the years, but it's been a while since we've had a Sasquatch story.
I don't have a good Sasquatch story. I wish I had one for you.
Yeah. Well, it could just be a matter of time. Keep fishing long enough. I keep thinking I'll run into one eventually, but I don't really want to be quite honest.
As long as I'm in the boat and he's on the bank, I think, and I got a 250 that runs, I think we're good.
They swim pretty fast, from what I've heard.
Not fast.
Not that fast.
Fat tail into that chair and have a 250 going.
They ain't swimming 70 miles an hour.
If he is, we're all screwed.
Yeah. The whole thing is, can you get that sucker on pad before he grabs the lower unit and stops you? That's the whole deal.
Look.
You don't know until you're there.
It's my time to go see Jesus. I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
They make a heck of a story, too.
How'd you get here? Sasquatch.
Yeah, Sasquatch. Yeah.
I sent it to you, Gabe.
Oh, we got one? We got a winner?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's roll back down. Find that sucker.
I'm cross-eyed now, so eyes are hurting.
189. All right.
Find it?
Not yet. Ask him a question while I'm looking. Don't you got a list of questions there? Professional podcaster guy.
You know, you used to guide on Rend, right?
I did.
What was it? Just crappie up there?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't guide bass fish on that place.
Now, when you guide crappie on Rend, were you wading for them?
Or looking for a challenge?
No, we were always in the boat.
Okay.
You know, so if I had a bass day, it was always Egypt.
Okay.
We'd go down there early in the year. You know, and it's no different what we're talking about here with Guntersville. You know, trap, chatterbait, that kind of thing.
Well, you know, have you fished Egypt since they've turned off the power?
No, I didn't even know they did. No.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we went on. It was what you said, 40.
Yeah, it was 43 right up by the buoys, and then just a little bit down lake. It was.
When did they turn it off?
About 6 years ago. Ron's on there. He lives on the lake, but I think it was like 5-6 years ago.
They still have the buoys and everything out there in front of it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they still run a little bit.
Like one, he said 42 today. It still runs a little bit, but not.
42 is probably a lot warmer than most lakes there, though.
It is.
Yeah, Cedar was 37 on the north end today.
You know, Little Lake, I haven't heard you guys mention the first 2-pound crappie ever caught in Southern Illinois is out of Little Grassy.
Oh yeah. There's big news on Grassy. They drained Grassy this year. Unfortunately.
See, I mean, that tells you how long it's been since I've been there. I don't keep up on all that stuff anymore.
Yeah, well, there was a leak. There's been a slow leak in the dam, and they started draining it about a month ago, and it's crazy. It's sad. But the plan is to drain it to fix the leak and then to fill it back up. But that could take, multiple years before they get the funding to do it. And I've seen some pictures. I haven't actually went over there and looked at it, but I've seen pictures of it, and I don't know. It kind of sucks, but
is it like drain now?
It's down quite a bit. You can't launch now. It's way down below the boat ramp. I mean, it's still got a lot of water in it. I mean, if you're a kayak fisherman though,
perfect.
I mean, sweet. You're not going to get, it's like zero. It's like a giant farm pond. There's going to be no pressure, no 10-horse motors running around.
What Matt said earlier about, who was talking about when Rend was dropped down? It was
a couple buddies of mine said that that was like early spring this last year.
Put almost 30 up, right?
26 or 28 or something. I mean, like Guntersville number.
So, and I know that for those kayak anglers that are out there, that exists in Little Grassy.
Oh, absolutely.
And now you just took that lake and made it exponentially smaller.
Yeah.
And to Gabe's point, you're going to have, any lake you do that with, you're going to have, you drop Guntersville 4 foot, and what does that do? That shrinks everything up. So, if you got an opportunity to go over there, especially this spring before it gets too low, make sure you get your graph with you and start marking some stuff for when it does come back up. Because I could only imagine. I know there's some really cool stuff in that lake. Side scan that lake quite a bit, and there's some house foundations in there and boats and all kinds of stuff that I found. So
we got a winner. Champion Bass or Champion Boats Community. Just hit me up and I will get you taken care of. I'll write this down so I don't forget. Okay. Make sure we don't have any last minute questions here. So any closing thoughts, Matt? Shout outs or anything before we shut her down?
No, I mean, I can just sit here and give you all my sponsors, guys, but I mean, I'll save that for another time. I love the bass fishing end of things. We talked about the baseball end. They kind of tie together for me. So this was, like I told Panger, this is not, am I fishing there? Yes, I am fishing the Rattle Trap tournament. I'll actually be helping with the event. I'll be the one at the tank that'll be bumping the fish. So I'll be at the meeting on Saturday as well.
Okay. So if you're there, go say hi to Matt.
Yep.
Oh, Tim Grounds. John said first tournament he fished at Lake of the Ozark or Lake of Egypt was with Tim Grounds about 35 years ago. And that's been a while ago.
I fished against Hunter. I don't remember Tim a lot. Hunter always had I think he's a yellow bullet. And even on Egypt and that speed limit, that didn't seem to bother any because I was sitting still. And it wouldn't bother me any either. I just didn't go as fast as he did.
Yeah. You can't go too fast. I mean, I guess you can, but that lake, you get from one end to the lake in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that big a lake. Most of those lakes are pretty small. Even Kincaid and Rend. Yeah, you can get up and run on Rend, but most of those lakes are pretty small.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. We'll wrap it up, man. I appreciate you hanging out with us.
Appreciate
good
you.
luck. Yeah, good luck the rest of the year on the opens, and hopefully you're gonna. So obviously, if you qualify for the EQs, you're fishing the EQs, and then if you make it, you going all the way, you're gonna fish the elites. Yeah. I figured so.
I wouldn't say it's like I told Panger, it's not a dream by any means.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple other businesses and everything. It's not something I set out to do, but if I accomplish it, I'll fish it.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you at least got to try it for a couple of years, Yep. So it's a very few people get a chance to do that. So, all right, that's it. Thanks to the sponsors once again, Bass Braid, Bait Works. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. Enjoyed it thoroughly. We do this every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Hope to see you next week. And until next time.